Coming up on Cronkite News, Arizona is approaching 2 million COVID cases since the start of the pandemic. We take a look at the impact COVID may have in the future.
Plus, a march to fight climate change here in the Valley. We take a look at the call to action activists are hoping to send.
And later on Break It Down, we'll discuss how activism in sports continues to influence politics.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Atria Mineshny.
And I'm Kelly Donahue. Thank you for joining us. Throughout the next few days, there will be national ceremonies recognizing COVID Memorial Day, including here in Arizona. The first reported COVID case in the state was on January 26, 2020. Now, over 2 years later, Arizona is approaching 2 million COVID cases and more than 27,000 deaths from the virus. Ashley Hajaleski takes a look at the lasting impact of this pandemic.
Even though the rates of infection are falling in the general population, the long-term effects of COVID-19 are here to stay. Randy Walters, who contracted COVID over a year ago, is still dealing with this virus.
It took 30% of my right lung is gone. And it's the one thing, and this is so common with so many long haulers, is stuff keeps popping up.
Walters is a part of the Arizona COVID-19 long haulers, a group that supports over 800 Arizonans infected with COVID who are still experiencing symptoms.
I get skin rashes out of nowhere. I never had them before, and so I've never had them. They come and they go, they come and they go. And my joints ache. Now I'm 68 years old, but it didn't hurt like this before COVID.
Joshua LeBaire explains, even though there is a lot more work to be done to understand long-term effects in COVID patients, there are some common side effects, including gastrointestinal issues and respiratory problems.
Other people, even those people who have not been in the hospital, sometimes have long-term effects in terms of oxygenation. Some people have had memory issues or brain-related malfunction over time.
In addition to people who are still feeling the physical effects of COVID, thousands are impacted emotionally at the loss of a loved one. Tara Krebs lost her father, Charles Krebs, to the virus in August of last year.
So this is my mom and dad with my son on my son's first day of kindergarten.
Tara was inspired to become an activist for Marked by COVID, a nonprofit organization that spreads awareness through events like COVID Memorial Day.
And an opportunity for all of us local to come and share pictures of our loved ones and also brief memories and stories about their lives and why we loved them so much.
The emotional toll on healthcare professionals and other frontline workers continues. According to the U.S. Department of Labor Statistics, since August of 2021, 3% of healthcare workers have quit their profession every month. We'll continue to feel the impact of COVID-19 for years to come.
It's clear now that this virus will become endemic, that we're just going to be living with this for a very long time.
In Phoenix, Ashley Hajaleski, Cronkite News.
There is an effort to designate a national holiday for COVID Memorial Day. Arizona will host a public ceremony on Monday, March 7th at the Arizona Heritage Center in Tempe.
Eviction filings in Maricopa County are seeing a steady increase since the nationwide moratorium on evictions ended last year. Maricopa County Justice Courts report the average amount owed in eviction cases increased more than 70% in just 2 years. In 2019, evicted tenants owed over $1,900 on average. In 2021, that average jumped to over $3,200. In February, Maricopa County saw just over 4,500 filings. As filings continue to climb, tenants should be aware there is rental assistance available.
Turning now to the latest out of Ukraine, where Russia continues its invasion. The International Organization for Migration says more than 1.2 million people have fled Ukraine so far. Despite peace talks between the two countries, fighting continues. Officials from the UN and Ukraine say there's no evidence of radiation being released after a fire broke out at a nuclear power plant. Russian President Vladimir Putin says they're ready to talk, but their demands must be met. More countries continue to place sanctions on Russia, and some companies such as Apple have also pulled their businesses out. If you're headed to the gas pump today, prices jumped overnight, partly because of the attack on Ukraine. According to AAA, an increase in oil prices and demand, along with the decreased supply of gas from Russia, contributed to the rise. They say the average national price for gas today is $3.84. That's up from yesterday's price of $3.73. And here in Arizona, prices are even a bit steeper. AAA says the state's average price today is $3.98, up 8 cents overnight.
A group of activists gathered this morning in North Phoenix to send a message to Arizona's 2 U.S. senators. They are concerned about climate change and how this is affecting Arizona. Liz Flores tells us what that message is and why now is the time for action.
A few days after the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report was released that indicates that the dangers it presents on the planet, local activists call for action to protect Arizonans.
And this is our time. This is our opportunity.
Will Humble from the Public Health Association walked among the group from Kristen Sinema's office to Senator Mark Kelly's office with a message.
To make sure that they understand the importance of the role that they play in the history of this planet and the future generations and the people living right here today.
They want the Arizona leaders to pass a $550 billion in investments in climate, justice, and jobs.
And that we can't wait for another bill to come along to get this done.
Drought equals agriculture and food insecurity. Drought leads to wildfires. Wildfires lead to poor air quality. Poor air quality impacts children, the elderly, pregnant people, babies, and leads to chronic conditions, COPD, cardiovascular disease.
They hope their actions will affect upcoming decisions on climate change efforts.
Economic concerns and disproportionate impacts on communities of color are all reasons we must have bold investments in climate, jobs, and justice.
Democrats in Congress are expected to reconstruct legislation that would increase tax incentives for renewable energy. Cronkite News reached out to both Kristen Sinema and Mark Kelly for a comment on the march, but had not heard back in time for this broadcast. In the newsroom, Liz Flores, Cronkite News.
The Winter Olympic Games wrapped up last month in Beijing, and now the Paralympics start today. So eyes are back on Beijing's snowy or not so snowy mountains. Cronkite News' Evan List joins us now to explain why there is growing concern about how reliable snow can be for future games.
For snowboarder Spirit Burnt of Tucson, she's just happy to have a day on the slopes at Arizona Snow Bowl.
I've been coming here for like 3 years now.
It's low-latitude ski resorts like Snow Bowl and Sunrise Park Resort in the White Mountains that are more vulnerable to climate change. Kyle Swatsky with Arizona Snow Bowl says the resort has historically depended on natural snow, but he says that was too variable. So introducing artificial snow 10 years ago was key to creating a reliable ski season.
It's really changed the game and made the season a lot longer and more enjoyable for everybody.
Despite Flagstaff being located in an arid Sunbelt state, Snow Bowl, Arizona uses this dryness to its advantage.
Snowmaking works best with as little moisture as possible in the air. This, along with freezing overnight temperatures in Flagstaff, mean powder enthusiasts have plenty of snow to safely enjoy at Snow Bowl. But the Winter Olympics in Beijing this year show just how variable natural snow conditions can be.
Planning for a Winter Olympics where you're planning 8-10 years out, you need that reliability. You need to be pretty certain that you're going to be able to hold the games ahead of time.
Natalie Knowles is a researcher at the University of Waterloo in Ontario, Canada. She recently co-authored a study compiling interviews with over 300 athletes and coaches to figure out both the safest and fairest conditions for the Winter Olympics.
Basically, that wet, heavy snow is really what athletes find to be quite dangerous and quite unfair.
The study concluded that if global emissions remain at current levels, only one city out of the past 21 that have hosted the Winter Olympic Games could reliably provide safe and fair conditions for competition by 2080. But Knowles says there's still reason to hope if emissions can be lowered.
A low emissions future was across the board. Everywhere had better conditions, and the reliability was just way higher.
Reliability in Flagstaff means snowmaking at Arizona Snow Bowl. so skiers and snowboarders can enjoy the mountain for as much of the season as possible.
It's safe. I'm most comfortable here. It's probably one of the safest mountains to ride and to learn on too.
As ski resorts in Arizona and beyond work to balance winter play with a changing climate, the latest report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change this week warns that climate change is here and may happen faster than expected. In Flagstaff, Evan Liss, Cronkite News.
The weather is going to be perfect tomorrow to get outside and enjoy the outdoors. But we are in store for a cool down next week. Luke Vickery joins us from the Cronkite News Weather Center with more.
Good afternoon, Arizona. Looking at Futurecast right now for the western portion of the United States, you can see there is quite a bit of cloud cover and a little bit of precipitation going on through Arizona, mostly in Flagstaff where you will see that snow and maybe even the possibility of a little bit of rain here in Phoenix. But as we move on, most of that will move out of our area, and now we focus on the Midwest where we do see this big snowstorm shooting up across the eastern portion of the United States, where you do see a little snowfall even in Canada. And there will be another storm move in behind it, but the only snowfall you really see from this one is in northern Ohio. Now, as we look at the big picture, low pressure is centered over us right now, and that is the majority of the reason why we're seeing all this cloud cover and the snowfall in Flagstaff. And we'll actually have 3 different low pressure systems move in and out of the area within the next few days. But after these low pressure systems move out, our temperatures will rise, and we will see more comfortable conditions moving into later next week. Now, as we look at the present time right now, 65 degrees right now, and as we move into the evening, temperatures really won't drop as much because of the cloud cover we have right now, acting like a blanket around our atmosphere, keeping the heat in. And as we look at the high temperatures for tomorrow, 68 degrees in Phoenix, 33 up towards Flagstaff, 73 down in Tucson. And as we look at our 8-day forecast, you will see the lowest high temperatures we will have for the next 8 days will be on Sunday with 64 degrees. And then on Saturday, we will top out at 81 degrees as the high temperature. In the Cronkite News Weather Center, I'm Luke Vickery.
I'm Hayden Weber. Coming up after the break, I'll have your Cronkite Sports Report. An ASU basketball icon made a big announcement yesterday. We'll have the latest next.
Cronkite News provides students at ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism with the opportunity to gain real-world experience in the newsroom. At Cronkite News, our students produce professional content for audiences by taking on all roles, whether they be reporting, anchoring, producing, or studio production. Each department gives students first-hand professional newsroom experience. For more information, visit cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
I was so excited when I learned that I was going to be the next moderator of Washington Week. I was incredibly lucky to be mentored by Gwen Eiffel, and what that gave to me was this confidence that I could be my full self and that I was deserving of whatever spaces I was in.
Welcome to Washington Week.
I also feel this great joy in taking the helm of Washington Week, knowing that I can mold it and make it my own, but also make sure that it is still within the legacy and the tradition that made it so great for all of these years.
Welcome back to Cronkite News. I'm Hayden Weber, and this is your Cronkite Sports Report. CHARLI Turner-Thorne has been coaching the Sun Devil women's basketball team for the past 25 years, and last night she announced this past season was her last. Turner-Thorne is the winningest coach in ASU women's basketball history and a 2-time Pac-12 Coach of the Year. Her 488 career wins puts her second all-time by a Pac-12 coach. The Sun Devils had 14 NCAA tournament appearances under Turner-Thorne, most recently in 2019 when they made a run to the Sweet 16. Here's what Turner-Thorne had to say about her time at ASU.
And then lastly, and most importantly, to my family, who's all here today, who honestly probably too often came second, to my ASU family. So I just appreciate their continued love and support.
From the Sun Devils to the Wildcats, Arizona's women's basketball team lost to the Colorado Buffaloes 45-43 in the quarterfinals of the Pac-12 tournament yesterday. Cronkite News reporter BREANNA ISBELL was in Vegas to catch the action.
Well, it's official. The Arizona Wildcats will be joining the Sun Devils on the road home as they face a tough loss against the Colorado Buffaloes, trailing behind by just 2 points.
The margin of error is very slim at this time of year. I always say it's never down to the last shot or the last play. It's the missed layup in the first quarter. It's the missed box out, or it's the and one. It's those things that, they accumulate at the end of the game, and then you lose by 2 points.
I don't think we shot that poorly in our past, but some days just go like that. I don't think there will ever be a time, at least throughout Maddie's career being here for the next 3 years, where the top three-point specialists go 2 for 24. Or what did we combine for? I think 1 for 16. That won't happen again.
While the Wildcats may not have a future in the Pac-12 tournament, head coach Adia Barnes says the NCAA tournament is what they have their sights set on moving forward.
We're a good team. We've had some bad losses lately, but we've beat some really good teams throughout the year, and the first one I can name is Louisville, but there's a list of them. So we deserve to be in the tournament, we deserve a seed, and we deserve to play at home, and I think the committee will recognize that and see that, and those are some really smart people, so I think they know what to do and they'll do the right thing.
Although the Wildcats have seen the end of the road for their time here in the Pac-12 tournament, there was no denying the energy both the Arizona fans and team brought to this stadium. The Wildcats will remain hopeful for a good seed in the NCAA tournament. In Las Vegas, Brianna Isbell, Cronkite News.
In sticking with Arizona basketball, after a postponement due to COVID-19, the university was finally able to honor their legendary basketball coach during halftime at McHale Center yesterday. Cronkite News reporter Lindsay Zienti was down in Tucson to see the ceremony.
Lou Olson's name will be forever tied to the University of Arizona basketball program. The Arizona Wildcats commemorated the late Tucson legend at last night's game versus the Stanford Cardinal. Olson may have primarily spent his time at McHale Center, but his presence was always felt beyond the basketball court.
I just think back to all the things, people have told me about their experiences with Coach, and, very little of it's basketball. A lot of it's just being a normal human being in the community.
Cats head into the Pac-12 tournament and postseason basketball. Head coach Tommy Lloyd looks to follow in Olson's footsteps. That's it for today's Cronkite Sports Report. Back to you, Autria.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.